ऐसे क्यों स्लाइड शेयर हो सकती है जिसपे आपको देख सकें साथ साथ? इसमें ऐसे भी कोई ऑप्शन है स्लाइड शेयर की कि आप कुछ लिख सकें साथ साथ स्टूडेंट्स को बताने के लिए? ये ऑप्शन नहीं है जूम में
बात करने के लिए?
नहीं नहीं, लिख के
नहीं
लिख के कोई एक्सप्लेन करना हो लेक्चर का. Okay, sure. Assalamualaikum students. So we have finished glomerulonephritis as I did yesterday. Now we are going to do tubulointerstitial diseases. Okay. Next is the topic is tubulointerstitial diseases. If you have any questions, you can write on your LMS or you can send your questions to me in my WhatsApp group. Okay. So tubulointerstitial nephritis causes. Mostly they are infectious causes, acute bacterial pyelonephritis, chronic pyelonephritis, other infections like viruses and parasites. Pyelonephritis means inflammation of the pelvis of the kidney as well as renal parenchyma. It can be acute because of bacterial infection, or it can be chronic because of chronicity of the infection which persists in the renal pelvis and kidney. I'm going to explain one by one. Other infections can be caused by viruses and parasites. Toxins, drugs can also lead to tubulointerstitial nephritis because of damaging to the tubules can occur because of certain drugs as well. Acute hypersensitivity interstitial nephritis is another condition which is because of hypersensitivity reactions. Analgesics can also lead to tubulointerstitial disorder because of destruction of the tubules. Heavy metals like lead and cadmium, they are very toxic to the kidney. They are nephrotoxic. So mostly heavy metals are not used during now in the medicinal industry. So causes can be infectious, they can be toxins, they can be metabolic disorders like urate nephropathy, nephrocalcinosis, acute phosphate nephropathy, hypokalemic nephropathy, oxalate nephropathy, urate nephropathy. Urate, you know, uric acid level, if it is increases, it precipitates in the kidney in the form of small crystals or stones leading to nephropathy or damage to the renal parenchyma. Nephrocalcinosis means deposition of calcium salts within the nephron, can also lead to tubulointerstitial nephritis. Like phosphate nephropathy, acute phosphate nephropathy is also because of increase in the phosphate level. Hypokalemic means decrease in the calcium level, and oxalate crystals can also lead to toxicity and damage to the renal parenchyma. Then there are physical factors like chronic urinary tract obstruction. Chronic urinary tract obstruction can occur because of the stones in the kidney or because of certain tumors which can obstruct to the outflow of the kidney, and in male it is mostly because of the benign prostatic hyperplasia which lead to urinary tract obstruction. Neoplasms, multiple myeloma kidney is another term which is we used for it. Myeloma you are going to study with your bones and joints, so it can also affect the tubules and interstitium. Immunological transplant rejection you have done in your third year because of antigen antibody reaction. Transplant kidney can undergo immunologically, leading to tubulointerstitial nephritis, vascular diseases and miscellaneous causes. So these are the causes of tubular interstitial nephritis. So today we are going to discuss acute pyelonephritis and chronic pyelonephritis. Urinary tract infections. Urinary tract infections can be seen in upper urinary tract and lower urinary tract. In the upper urinary tract, these are pyelonephritis. Pyelonephritis means inflammation of the renal pelvis. In the first lecture, I told you what is a renal pelvis, and it can also lead to infection which can spread in between the renal parenchyma, in between the tubules and in the interstitial tissue, leading to acute pyelonephritis when it is of acute condition, or it can become chronic, leading to chronic pyelonephritis. Lower urinary tract infections are ureteritis, cystitis, and urethritis. You have done all these in your when you did the lecture of bladder. Okay. So now we are going to discuss pyelonephritis. Pyelonephritis is the inflammation affecting the tubules, interstitium, and renal pelvis. So in the pyelonephritis, it is the inflammation because of the certain bacteria, as I've told you the list, or it can be because of viruses. There is going to be inflammation of the tubules, interstitium, and renal pelvis, or it can be damaged because of certain other like drugs or heavy metals, as I've given you the list earlier. Okay, ji? Okay. So in acute pyelonephritis, it is generally caused by bacterial infection and it's associated with urinary tract infections. Lower urinary tract infections can ascend into the bladder and leading to acute pyelonephritis. And chronic pyelonephritis is also caused by hematogenous spread or by the ascending spread. In the case of chronic pyelonephritis, it is caused by bacterial infections and other factors like vesico-ureteric reflux. That is, when you void the urine, it flows back into the ureter and comes into the kidney, leading to a vesico-ureteric reflux, which gives rise to pyelonephritis. Obstruction predisposes to repeated episodes of acute pyelonephritis. Obstruction can be because of kidney, because of kidney stones, or because of tumors in the kidney, or it can be because of benign prostatic hyperplasia. Pyelonephritis is a serious complication of urinary tract infection that affects the bladder, cystitis, and the kidney and collecting system. Pyelonephritis are both. So pyelonephritis, whenever there is a chronic bladder infection, chronic cystitis, it can lead to infection or inflammation in the kidney and collecting duct system, which is known as pyelonephritis. Bacterial infections of lower urinary tract may be asymptomatic and localized to bladder only. So mostly the symptoms of lower urinary tract infections are pyuria, dysuria, pain in the lower abdomen, or burning micturition. They are all present in the urinary tract infection, or there can be no symptoms and the infection can travel to the bladder as well. Okay. Acute pyelonephritis is often associated with urinary tract obstruction. As I've told you, obstruction can be because of the tumors, because of the stones, or in the case of male, it is because of the benign prostatic hyperplasia. Instrumentation into the bladder, vesico-ureteric reflux, pregnancy. Pregnancy also puts pressure on the pregnant uterus, or gravid uterus put pressure on the bladder, leading to obstruction. Gender and age means as the person grows bigger, like an older female, older males, benign prostatic hyperplasia is the most important cause. Pre-existing renal lesions can also predispose to pyelonephritis. Diabetes mellitus, and diabetics are more prone to getting urinary tract infections other than normal individuals. Immunosuppression and immunodeficiency individuals are also prone to develop urinary tract infections. Pyelonephritis, the etiology and pathogenesis. What is the underlying cause for the pyelonephritis? These are the gram-negative bacteria which cause more than 85% of infection. So 85% of infection of kidney and that is the interstitium and renal pelvis are because of gram-negative bacteria. These bacteria you have studied in detail in your third year. These bacteria can be E. coli, Proteus, Klebsiella, Enterobacter. E. coli, and you know, is Escherichia coli. They are present in your stool as a normal coliform organism in the stool, but they can infect the urinary bladder. Then Proteus organism, Klebsiella and organism, and Enterobacter. They are all gram-negative organisms. Gram-positive organisms are Streptococcus faecalis and Staphylococcus aureus. Strep faecalis and Staph aureus. Mycobacterium tuberculosis can lead to tuberculous pyelonephritis or of the kidney. Okay, and fungal infection can also cause urinary tract infections. The routes of spread to the kidney can be through bloodstream or through the ascending infection. Through bloodstream, we call it a hematogenous spread. Hematogenous spread occurs when there is some other focus present in the body which can, from the blood, the organisms can go and lodge in the kidney. This can be because of endocarditis. Infective endocarditis can give rise to hematogenous spread. Sometimes infection elsewhere in the body, like infections in the bones, can also go and travel to the kidney through the bloodstream as well. Then ascending infection. Ascending infections are from the urinary bladder mostly, and this is because of the vesico-ureteric reflux, which I will tell you later. So hematogenous spread. In the hematogenous spread, it occurs in the seeding of bacteria from other infections like septicemia or infective endocarditis. Hematogenous infection usually occurs in presence of ureteral obstruction in an old and debilitated individual. So those people who have some other infection in the body like infective endocarditis, or they are suffering from septicemia, the infective organisms can travel through the bloodstream and can lodge into the bladder, especially in those people who are old and debilitated. Ascending infections. Ascending infection is through the vesico-ureteric reflux. The steps which are involved in this ascending infections are: the first step is the colonization of the distal urethra by the coliform bacteria. Coliform bacteria are gram-negative bacteria, which depends upon the degree of adherence to the urothelial mucosal epithelium, which involves adhesive molecules like adhesins on the P. fimbriae or pili of the bacteria. So this means the more these organisms can adhere to the urinary epithelium, which is called urothelium, the more they are going to cause infection. They lead to adhesion because of the certain adhesive molecules present on the bacteria, or there are P. fimbriae or pili present on the bacteria which adhere to the urinary tract epithelium and can travel to the vesico-ureteric reflux to the kidney, the pelvis of the kidney. From the urethra to the bladder, the organism gain entrance through urethral catheterization or other instrumentation. Urinary tract infections are much more common in females because of the presence of short urethra, as well as absence of antibacterial properties which are present in the urethra. Hormonal changes also affect adherence of bacteria. Okay. Mechanism by which microbes move from the bladder to the kidney are as follows: urinary tract obstruction and stasis of urine. Organisms in the bladder are cleared by continuous voiding of the urine. Outflow obstruction of the bladder or dysfunction results in incomplete emptying of the bladder, or residual urine is present in the bladder, which can lead to stasis and multiplication of bacteria, leading to urinary tract infection. UTI are very common in those people who are suffering from benign prostatic hyperplasia, which is called BPH. Sorry, just a second. So in case of stasis, bacteria multiply. UTI are commonly seen in BPH people, tumors of calculi, and in patients with diabetes mellitus. So first, the bacteria are going to adhere to the epithelium of the urethra. And from there, they gain entrance into the bladder. In the bladder, they can multiply because of the stasis, because the bladder is incompletely going to be emptied because of obstruction to the outflow of the urine, and that is can be because of BPH, tumors or calculi in the bladder, or people who are suffering from diabetes mellitus. जी आगे नहीं move करी slide. Excuse me. आगे नहीं move करी. Sorry for the interruption. I'm trying to move it forward, but it's not. Slide आगे नहीं move करी. Thank you. अच्छा अच्छा thank you. So vesico-ureteric reflux. Vesico-ureteric reflux allows the bacteria to ascend the ureter into the pelvis, and incompetent orifice allows the retrograde flow of the urine when the intravesical pressure rises in the micturition. So if you see this next picture, you can understand this is the normal kidney. This is the bladder, and valves, they become closed when the urine is going to be voided. Okay. But in case of vesico-ureteric reflux, when the urine is going to be voided, these valves are not closed and the urine flows back from the ureter into the renal pelvis and into the kidney parenchyma. The refluxing urine. This is refluxing urine backwards. So in case of chronic pyelonephritis, scarring develops in the kidney because of the loss of parenchyma, which I'm going to explain later. So this is the backward flow of the urine from the bladder into the ureter and into the renal pelvis and renal parenchyma. So in case of vesico-ureteric reflux, it allows bacteria to ascend the ureter into the renal pelvis. Incompetent orifice allows retrograde flow of urine when the intravesical pressure rises, as in micturition. Vesico-ureteric reflux is seen in children in 1 to 2% of cases, and in adult it is acquired by repeated bladder infection. In the children, it can be like a congenital reflux, but in the acquired condition, in the adults, it is because of repeated urinary tract infections. So this is the vesico-ureteric reflux. Normally, no urine flows back into the ureter, but in the case of vesico-ureteric reflux, the orifices do not close, which are connecting the ureter to the bladder. These orifices are open, and the urine is going backwards into the renal pelvis and into the renal parenchyma. Intrarenal reflux. Then there is an intrarenal reflux. Infected urine can be propelled up to the renal pelvis and deep into the parenchyma by open ducts at the tips of papillae, especially in concave papillae. In the absence of zygote-ureteric reflux, infection is localized to the bladder. So in case of chronic acute pyelonephritis, I've told you it is because of the certain bacteria which are mostly coliform organisms, and then there is these gram-positive organism as well, and there are two routes of spread, hematogenous spread and spread through the vesico-ureteric reflux. I hope this is clear. This is much simpler than the glomerulonephritis. Then next is the acute. In the case of acute pyelonephritis is a suppurative inflammation of the kidney by bacteria and sometimes viruses. In the viruses, the polyomavirus is involved. The bacteria reach the kidney by ureter, by vesico-ureteric reflux, as I've explained you earlier, or they can reach through the bloodstream if there is a septicemia, patient is suffering from septicemia, or patient is suffering from other infections in the body like infective endocarditis. Infective endocarditis I've done in detail with you when we did our cardiovascular system. Okay, in acute pyelonephritis, there is going to be suppurative inflammation in the kidney, and the bacteria will travel from the hematogenous spread or through the vesico-ureteric reflux. Morphologically, on the gross appearance, kidneys are enlarged. They are larger in size than normal. They are yellowish in color. Yellowish pus areas can be seen on the surface of the kidney. And when you do the cut section of the kidney, yellowish areas of pus formation and areas of necrosis can be seen. So if I show you this picture, this is both the kidneys are involved in acute pyelonephritis. This is more involved as compared to this. You can see these yellowish areas. They are all pus formation. This is the whole kidney. This is not the cut section. Here you can also see the areas which are showing yellowish in appearance on the surface of the kidney. This is the picture of gross appearance of acute pyelonephritis of the kidney. This picture can be present in your OSPE exam as well. Okay. So microscopically, in the acute cases of pyelonephritis, there is going to be acute suppurative inflammation. Acute suppurative inflammation means there is going to be necrosis of the tubules. Glomeruli are very resistant to necrosis, okay? So first, the tubules and interstitium are involved. Intertubular aggregates of neutrophils are seen, which are acute inflammatory cells, and these neutrophils can also be present in the tubules, leading to neutrophilic tubulitis, and tubular necrosis are seen. So dense acute inflammatory infiltrate is seen within the interstitium and as well as in the tubules, leading to tubulointerstitial nephritis. So I'll show you this picture. In this picture, you can see a renal tubule all packed with acute inflammatory cell neutrophils. These neutrophils, you can see, they have multiple lobe nuclei, so they can be seen on the lobar as well. And in the interstitium, you can also see neutrophilic infiltrate. This is microscopic appearance in the acute pyelonephritis. So suppuration can occur as a discrete focal abscesses, or large bed-like areas can involve both kidneys. In the early stages, neutrophilic infiltrate is limited to the tubules only, and from tubules, infection spreads to the interstitium, producing abscesses which destroy the tubules. Glomeruli are resistant to the infection, and extensive infection glomeruli are destroyed as well. Fungal infection destroys glomeruli and lead to granulomatous interstitial inflammation. So in case of acute pyelonephritis, you see acute suppuration. Suppuration is that necrosis of the tissue with pus formation, okay? In the early stages, you can see a neutrophilic infiltrate which is present in between the tubules, like within the interstitium. But later, the neutrophilic infiltrate also come into the tubules, leading to destruction of the tubular epithelium, which destroy the tubules, and the glomeruli, they are very resistant to infections. They appear normal. Unpe infection bahut kam aayega, okay? But glomeruli can be destroyed when the infection is very, very serious and large. Sometimes fungal infection glomeruli involved, leading to destruction of the glomeruli. Okay. So in acute bacterial infection, first there is going to be interstitial involvement by neutrophils, then tubular involvement, and glomeruli very resistant to be destroyed. So you should remember that. This picture I've shown you is acute inflammatory infiltrate present in the tubules and present in the interstitium. The tubular epithelium is destroyed. Complication of acute pyelonephritis. There are certain complications if this is not treated. Papillary necrosis can be seen. Papillae, are present at the tip of the medulla. The necrosis can be seen. Grossly, tips of pyramids show gray, white to yellow necrosis. Microscopically, these tips show coagulative necrosis. Coagulative necrosis you have done in your third year. It means destruction of the nuclei with preservation of the architecture. That is seen microscopically in cases of coagulative necrosis. Next complication is pyonephrosis. Pyonephrosis means the whole of the kidney there is so much suppurative inflammation that the whole of the kidney is destroyed and only you can see pus-filled cavities and pus is present between the renal pelvis, calyces and in the ureter as well. This is pyonephrosis. Perinephric abscess. Perinephric abscess is extension of the inflammation into the tissues around the kidney. So the tissue which is around the kidney, that is capsule of the kidney and the fibrocollagenous tissue which is surrounding the kidney, the infection spreads to that area, leading to suppurative inflammation into the renal capsule. That is perinephric abscess. Okay. So complications are papillary necrosis. Papillary necrosis is mostly seen in diabetic patients. Pyonephrosis, I told you, the destruction of renal parenchyma, pus formation, and perinephric abscess, spread of the infection into the surface of the kidney and involving under the renal capsule is known as perinephric abscess, or around the tissues which are around the kidney is perinephric abscess. Okay, I hope it is clear. Acute pyelonephritis. Acute pyelonephritis is much more simpler than the glomerulonephritis, which we have done in the earlier lectures. Okay, after the acute phase healing, neutrophils infiltrate is replaced by macrophages and plasma cells and lymphocytes. So after the acute inflammation is healed, there is going to be replacement of these neutrophils by macrophages and plasma cells and lymphocytes that are mononuclear cells. Inflammation is going to be replaced by the fibrous scar, which can be seen on the cortical surface as the depressed area. So whenever this inflammation heals, there is no regeneration of the normal renal parenchyma. It is going to be replaced by fibrous tissue or fibrosis or scar, and this fibrous tissue makes the on the cut surface or the gross appearance, this area will appear depressed or lower inside as compared to the normal area. Okay, the clinical features of the acute pyelonephritis. Clinically, patient presents with some sudden onset of pain at costovertebral angle and fever. Okay, there is going to be marked fever with chills and rigors. There is going to be dysuria. Frequency and urgency are often seen. Urine examination shows pyuria or pus in the urine. Pus and cast can be present as well. Diagnosis is made by the urine examination and culture sensitivity of the urine. Okay, so the lab diagnosis of acute pyelonephritis is urine examination. The urine examination you do two things. Number one is the chemical examination, which will show whether there is going to be proteinuria or piles present in them, the specific gravity of the urine, and then you do the microscopic examination. In the microscopic examination, the normal urine you have done in your third year, you know there are only 2 to 4 pus cells per hyperfield in a female, and in male there are only 1 to 2 pus cells per hyperfield. But in case of urinary tract infection, you can see up to 30 to 100 pus cells per hyperfield. Or if there is pyuria, you cannot even count the number of cells in per hyperfield. So urine examination, the urine is full of pus cells or the 20 to 30 pus cells can be seen. You will label it as urinary tract infection, and then you put the culture of the urine. The culture of the urine, you know, is put on the CLED media, cysteine lactose electrolyte deficient medium, and you can see the coliform organism colonies in them, and then you put a sensitivity on the sensitivity agar plate. Okay, so you have done all this in third year. The lab diagnosis of acute pyelonephritis is by urine examination and by the culture and sensitivity of the urine. Now comes the chronic pyelonephritis and reflux nephropathy. Chronic pyelonephritis can be because of the acute, multiple episodes of acute episodes can lead to chronic pyelonephritis as well. It is a disorder in which chronic tubulointerstitial inflammation is seen with scarring, which involves the calyces and the renal pelvis. Chronic pyelonephritis can be divided into two forms, reflux nephropathy and chronic obstructive pyelonephritis. In the case of reflux nephropathy, it occurs in early childhood as a result of superimposition of urinary tract infection or urinary infection on congenital vesico-ureteric reflux and intrarenal reflux. So I told you what is a vesico-ureteric reflux, and I have also explained what is intrarenal reflux. So chronic pyelonephritis, there are two conditions in which you can see chronic pyelonephritis. Number one is reflux nephropathy and chronic obstructive pyelonephritis. The etiology, the bacteria involved are same in case of acute and chronic pyelonephritis. But in chronic pyelonephritis, the other bacteria which is other than the coliform and gram-positive bacteria are tuberculous organisms. Mycobacterium tuberculosis can also lead to tuberculosis in the kidney. So that is known as tuberculosis of the kidney, renal parenchyma of the kidney. Okay. So in case of chronic obstructive pyelonephritis, recurrent infection superimposed on localized or diffuse obstructive lesion lead to repeated bouts of inflammation in the renal pelvis and scarring resulting in chronic pyelonephritis. In case of reflux nephropathy, it is mostly seen in children because there are urinary infection and congenital vesico-ureteric reflux and intrarenal reflux also operate. And in case of chronic pyelonephritis, which is because of obstructive lesion, recurrent infections are superimposed on localized or diffuse obstruction, leading to repeated bouts of inflammation within the renal pelvis and renal parenchyma, and this gives rise to chronic pyelonephritis with scarring. Chronic pyelonephritis will also lead to end-stage renal disease. As I told you, chronic glomerulonephritis and certain glomerular diseases lead to end-stage renal disease. So chronic obstructive pyelonephritis also lead to end-stage renal disease. Okay. This is the diagram of the cut section of the kidney. You can see the dilated calyces and you can see scarring of the kidney because of the fibrosis, which is because of chronic pyelonephritis. This is the diagrammatic representation. Morphologically, I'll show you the kidneys are much contracted in size. This is the normal kidney. In the chronic pyelonephritis, kidneys become much contracted and smaller in size because of the fibrous tissue present in them. Okay. Kidney are irregularly scarred if bilateral involvement is there, if they are asymmetrical. They have got coarse, discrete corticomedullary scars overlying dilated, blunted, and deformed calyces. This is a corticomedullary scar which is present on the dilated, blunted calyx. Okay, so there is coarse, discrete corticomedullary scarring overlying dilated, blunted, and deformed calyces are present with flattening of the papillae. Scars are both in the upper and the lower poles. They can be present in upper or lower poles as well. Microscopic or chronic pyelonephritis is very typical, and this is your viva question, your OSPE question, OSPE slide, as well as your SCQ, MCQ, and SCQ. Microscopically, in chronic pyelonephritis involves the tubules and the interstitium. The tubules, they show atrophy in some areas and they show dilatation and hypertrophy in other areas. Dilated tubules contain pinkish eosinophilic material or cast which resemble thyroid follicles, and this is also called thyroidization of the tubules. Actually, there are no thyroid tissue present, okay? Please remember that. The dilated tubules appear like thyroid follicles, but there is no thyroid tissue present, and the eosinophilic material which they contain are mostly proteins or plasma proteins which are present in them, but there are no thyroid tissue present in them. Okay, there is no colloid material, but because they resemble thyroid, that is why they are called thyroidization of tubules. I'll show you the slides. So these are few slides which I'm showing you, and these are your OSPE slides. They are often given to the undergraduate in the OSPE examination. Okay. You see, this is the slide of chronic pyelonephritis. You can see interstitial inflammatory infiltrate, which has destroyed the tubules as well. One glomerulus is there, which is preserved. And these are the tubules which show tubular epithelium is destroyed, and they contain pinkish eosinophilic material, and that's why they resemble thyroid follicles and they are called thyroidization. So this slide can be given in your OSPE without these two markings. Okay. So remember these slides. This chronic pyelonephritis, all of these tubules contain eosinophilic material and they appear quite a thyroid tissue, but this will not be given because you cannot see a glomerulus here. Here, this slide contains a glomerulus. So this is a better slide for your OSPE exam as compared to this slide. Okay, this is also chronic pyelonephritis. This can be given. Why? Because they can show the normal tubules on one side, and on the other side they can show atrophic tubules when contain pinkish eosinophilic material, and this is called, because they resemble thyroid tissue, this is called thyroidization. This is also nice slide for chronic pyelonephritis. You can see dense inflammatory infiltrate, composed lymphocyte. A whole focus is present. Okay. Only a lymphoid follicle is not there, but a whole focus and inflammatory infiltrate is present. tubules are completely destroyed in this area. Here you can see few tubules, but you cannot see thyroidization in the tubules. What do you see is glomerulosclerosis. One of the glomerulosclerosis, other is normal, but the glomerular Bowman's capsule is very thick, okay? And you can see here another glomerulosclerosis. Here the artery is showing peripheral hyalinization of the arterial wall, okay? So this tubule is a normal appearing tubule. This is chronic pyelonephritis without any showing any thyroidization features. So under microscopy, chronic inflammatory infiltrate and fibrosis are seen in the interstitium, in the cortex and medulla. Vessels demonstrate sclerosis, and if hypertension is also present, hyaline arteriosclerosis. I've told you this vessel is showing sclerosis, but not complete sclerosis. Still some lumen is present in them. Glomeruli appear normal, but some glomeruli show ischemic changes, periglomerular fibrosis, fibrous obliteration, and secondary changes related to hypertension can be seen. So this glomerulosclerosis is seen, periglomerular fibrosis is seen in this diagram. Okay, so these are the features of chronic pyelonephritis, which I am going to repeat again, as it is very important. It involves tubules and interstitium. Tubules show atrophy in some cases and dilatation in other, and hypertrophy in other areas. Dilated tubules contain thickish eosinophilic cast resembling thyroid follicles, hence they are called thyroidization of tubules, okay? But they are not thyroid follicles and they do not contain colloid material. Please remember that, okay? ये आपने mistake नहीं करनी है. यहाँ पर आप देखिए kidneys have become contracted while this is the normal kidney. These are the contracted kidneys. This is showing the gross appearance of chronic pyelonephritis. Okay? Okay. So I'm doing 105 minutes are left. Okay, this is another picture, beautiful picture of chronic pyelonephritis. I should not call it beautiful, but it's very book picture. Atrophic tubules with filled eosinophilic secretion, which is called thyroidization of tubules. Chronic inflammatory infiltrate in the interstitium. No glomerulus is seen. Okay, so you have to remember all these slides. Any one of these slides can be your OSPE slide, except one which is not showing any tubules normally. So another type of chronic pyelonephritis is known as xanthogranulomatous pyelonephritis. It means that it is characterized by accumulation of foamy macrophages with plasma cell lymphocytes, polymorphonuclear leukocytes, and occasional giant cells. So why we are giving it as xanthogranulomatous? It gives a yellowish appearance and gross appearance, and it contains many lipid-laden macrophages that is called xanthogranulomatous pyelonephritis. Your examiner can ask you what is a xanthogranulomatous pyelonephritis. It is just a name given to pyelonephritis in which you see lipid-laden foamy macrophages and other inflammatory infiltrate is same. Often it is associated with protease infections, produce yellow-orange nodules that can be confused with renal cell carcinoma. Renal cell carcinoma we are going to do tomorrow. Clinical features. Chronic pyelonephritis can present silently or present with acute recurrent pyelonephritis such as back pain, fever, pyuria, bacteriuria. Okay, the same signs and symptoms as in case of acute pyelonephritis. Gradual onset of renal insufficiency and hypertension develops. I've told you it will lead to end-stage renal disease. Reflux nephropathy is usually discovered in children to find a cause for hypertension. This is the microscopic appearance of xanthogranulomatous pyelonephritis. You can see these are lipid-laden macrophages, and you can see inflammatory infiltrate composed of mostly macrophages and lymphocytes in the surrounding area. Clinical course of chronic pyelonephritis. Loss of tubular function gives rise to polyuria, nocturia. Proteinuria is mild. Nocturia means urine. A person is getting up at night for the urine. Proteinuria is mild. Some people also develop focal segmental glomerulosclerosis with significant proteinuria even in the nephrotic range. Nephrotic range proteinuria, you may know that it is more than 3.5 grams per day. There is poor prognostic sign. When these signs appear, they are of poor prognosis and patient goes into end-stage renal disease because of chronic pyelonephritis and later glomerulosclerosis I have explained to you earlier. Then there is tubulointerstitial nephritis induced by drugs and toxins. Drugs and toxins can injure kidney in three ways: immunologically by hypersensitivity reaction, by acute tubular injury. ATN I am not going to do, you can read it from your book, and if you have any question you can ask me. Then subclinical and cumulative injury to tubules can take years to lead to chronic renal insufficiency. Acute drug-induced interstitial nephritis is seen because of methicillin, ampicillin, diuretic, thiazide, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, allopurinol, cimetidine. Okay. Then chronic tubular interstitial nephritis is also caused by analgesic, which is known as analgesic nephropathy. Okay. Proteinuria and hematuria and WBC cast are seen in the urine, and rising serum creatinine or acute kidney injury with oliguria develops in 50% of elderly patients. So with each type of renal disease, there is going to be a lab diagnosis. In the lab diagnosis, you are going to do the urine examination. And in the cases of infection, you are going to put the urine culture. In case of glomerulonephritis, you are going to do the renal function test. I'm just going to show you the urine analysis. You can read on these slides. You can do the physical examination, chemical and microscopic examination. Dr. Tahir is going to go and do this renal function test with you in detail in a lecture on Friday after I finish tomorrow, okay? So these are the renal function tests which I have prepared a list for you, and he's going to go in the detail. And then urine analysis, this is a complete urine analysis form which you have to fill up for the patient when you are doing urine examination in the laboratory, okay? So renal vascular diseases we are going to do tomorrow. If you have any questions related to this topic, you can send in LMS or you can send me in your WhatsApp group. Thank you. Okay. Unmute तो नहीं हो सकते. Time नहीं है. Okay जी, I'll talk to you tomorrow. Thank you.